Hi designers, it's Haley with Silver Moon Design School. That's my cat Archie. And today I'm going to show you how to work with liquid in Adobe Dimension using Adobe Illustrator to create your files. I've had a few requests for liquid spilling or how to put liquid into a bottle. So I'll show you a few different ways to fill a square bottle, to fill a round bottle, and then make liquid look like it's spilling. All right, let's get started. Okay designers, here I have 3 different examples of different types of fills, and I'm going to just show you the basics with a round container fill, a square container fill, and then I want to show you liquid spilling out of a glass. So first I'm going to start with the round glass here. So to make the liquid sit inside of the glass, it's actually pretty simple. So now that you have a shape, and you can follow any of my other tutorials to find a shape, all I'm going to do, you'll follow the same exact method for anything that's using the Revolve 3D material setting. So you'll take this shape, make a copy of it. I'm just holding Option and Shift and making a copy. I'm going to turn off 3D materials for now under the Appearance panel. My scissors tool, and snip wherever I want the liquid to sit. So I don't want it at the very tippy top, I want it kind of a little bit lower, a pretty good fill for this highball glass. So I snipped where I wanted the liquid and then at the inside base, and I'm going to delete the outside line. So now I will just use my pen tool to connect these shapes. I'm holding Shift just to get some nice square lines at first. And so then when you click on 3D materials, you'll see that this is a shape that would sit inside of this shape. But it doesn't look very convincing, right? It doesn't look like it is liquid. And that's in part because we'll need to add that texture when we go into Adobe Dimension. But with my shape, I like to add a little bit of a ripple, kind of like that Jurassic Park effect, just to help it look a little bit more fluid and realistic. So I'll turn off 3D materials for now because I'm just going to make a few anchor points along this path. And you can kind of do them unevenly. It's honestly better if it's uneven because it just gives it a little more realism. And then just taking these and creating wave-like ripples. And they can just be as organic as you want them to look. So just to show you what this looks like, when I open it, you can see it looks like ripples, like someone just kind of like banged the table. And I like this look. I think it's symmetrical and appealing to the eye. The next one that I'm going to show you is how to fill a square bottle. So this is inspired by the perfume bottle. I'll leave the link here in this banner. This is inspired by like the square perfume mock-up. So I'll follow the similar process here. So I will drag a copy of the depth. So I have this shape here, which is like the front and the back. And then I have this shape here, which I used extrude to create. So I'm going to take this extrude shape because it already has the depth already figured out. And again, scissors tool, I'm just going to snip there, and then delete that outside shape. And then same thing, I can come in, I can fill in my anchor points here. And if I add ripples though, it's just gonna give it a little bit of a different look. So I tend not to do the Jurassic Park effect with this. I do tend to just kind of, if I turn this off for a minute, I do just tend to fill it all the way to the top or do like a slight wave effect, something that's a little more subtle. So when you turn it on, it kind of looks like it's maybe sloshing back and forth, more of like ocean wave type pattern. And then sometimes I will go ahead and round these corners so it doesn't look like it's adhering so much, that it is just a little more fluid. This next one is a spill or a splatter. All right, so with this one, I've found a spill that I want to replicate. And then using my pencil tool, I'm just gonna trace around the shape, and the rougher or the more uneven, the better. We can smooth some of these things up using the smooth tool, but I just like tracing it around kind of organically because spills, you know, what those water molecules, they kind of just gather wherever they want. So And it's a pretty easy method. I'm going to choose white since that'll stand out on this dark background. I'll just use inflate. And then as I scroll down and rotate around, you can see it's like puffed it up a lot. So what I do is I bring the volume way, way down so that it's, I don't know, like 15%. I also change the depth. We're gonna need to go with like 0.05, maybe 0.02, 0.01, like whatever depth you think just looks accurate for the volume of what you're spilling. So I think that that is looking pretty good. Let me look at it from the top. And then sometimes the volumes may be better, a little bit higher. Yeah, with 21%. And with the depth of like 0. And then you can follow that same method for the circles and the blobs. And then to create these other blobs, I'm just going to take my brush tool and I'm going to trace around them. And for each of these little droplets, like there's probably a better way to make like a blobby blob, but you know, I just draw around them. And then if you have a better way to make a blobby blob, let me know. But I just kind of draw around it, match up the anchor points, and then click inflate, and then I'll choose that depth of 0. I'll choose the volume of 21. Let's see where that gets us. I don't know, maybe I'll go higher with the volume since it is a water droplet. It does not like spread out. Yeah, let's do a volume of like 66 and a depth of 0, and that gives us this nice, if you can see it, like a really tall blob. And then I could just copy these and like move those anchor points around just to get a little variance on some shapes. So I'll bring some of these with me. I will select all of these. Now that I have all of these selected, I click right click, collect for export, and multiple assets. They all pop up over here. And I choose OBJ from the drop-down menu and rename these whatever makes sense to you. All right, select all of them, make sure they're all highlighted blue, and then this button here, click export. Now I'm opening Adobe Dimension. All right, I'm gonna make this canvas bigger so I get a really nice render to like 2004. Resolution I can pick, oh, that's too much. 300 is all I need. And then I have my OBJ files here on the side. I'll start with the round liquid first. Placing it in, aligning it to the bottom, and then scrolling down to my materials where I can find water. When I zoom in, you can see that the water texture has been applied and that it looks pretty realistic. There are a few things you can add, so if you have a mixed drink, for example, you can change the color here and make it different viscosities. You can make it different viscosities by changing the roughness. If you wanted it a little bit more opaque, you can play with the opacity as well. I would, instead of the opacity, recommend using translucence to change the clarity of the liquid. So if you wanted it a little thicker, opacity makes the entire shape dissolve, where translucence just controls how see-through it is, if that makes sense. Same with index of refraction, that will change how much light passes through, as you can see here. The higher the number, the more kind of twisty-turny it'll look. So that is this liquid, and it's very similar for square liquid, bringing that one in. We have, I'll add the beer to this one just so you can see some of the other settings. There's olive oil, beer, and water is just the defaults, as well as ice if you want to make some ice cubes to put in your drinks and your liquids. So you can see there with the beer, the splash is a little more tricky. So, all right, so I'll choose olive oil for this one just so you can see this viscosity. And as I scroll in, you can see it picks up different highlights. It looks like a spill. And then just depending on how you want the spill to look, like if we applied water to it, you can go back and, like I said, change some of the heights and some of those curves so that it looks more realistic. But then adding in these little droplets too will help a lot to make that look more realistic. So you can see I'm bringing in droplets, I'm stacking them, arranging them, moving them to the bottom so that it looks like a bona fide spill. This glass is a little large to scale, so once I get this situated, all right, so I have it turned to 90. I can have it situated like this. Let's see how this is looking with it spilled. So you can just adjust the angles. I'm going to bring down the size of the glass a little bit more so it looks like it was a lot of liquid that spilled out. We'll try like 2 centimeters. Bring it to the bottom, move it forward, and then it'll look like the liquid is kind of coming out of the glass too. So you could even move the spill like a little bit in. I will add, let's see, like the water maybe, so it looks like a glass of water spilled instead of the olive oil. It's kind of giving it a weird look. Also, shadows have a lot to do with this as well. So if we add some different lighting, like 3-point light, let's see how it starts to make this look. Pretty good. Let me click on the liquid again and just play with some of the opacity because the shadows are a little dark for my taste. So I can bring up the index or bring down the index of refraction. And then I also might just bring the height of it down a little bit. So I could do like 0.5 for the height. Yeah, so now that I've adjusted the height, I think that's looking a lot more natural. It's looking like a real spill. It was just a little too tall before, but that's all we could do in the Illustrator settings. So now that I've adjusted the height to 0.04 centimeters, that's looking like a really good spill. And you could kind of layer different items on there if you wanted it to look like it was pouring out. Same thing, use that inflate tool and like just draw a shape of how you want it to look falling out. But that is how you create liquid spills. All right, and that wraps up this tutorial. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of other great tutorials. Comment below with what you want to see next. And until next time.